Sandra Bullock plays an astronaut in a 90-minute thrill ride set in Earth's orbit. A disaster puts her in peril and she must fight to survive or risk never returning home. If nothing else, this one's a technical showpiece, but I do remember it hitting hard in 2013. So join us as we revisit Gravity. Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is David.
I come in peace.
This is a science fiction movie podcast, and today we're going to be talking about Gravity, which won the Patreon vote for the month, beat out a couple other movies. And this obviously came out in 2013, stars Sandra Bullock, directed by Alfonso Cuarón. I remember this one coming out well. I think I saw it a couple times in the theater, if I recall correctly. So... Damn. Yeah, have you seen this before?
Yes, I definitely seen. This is at least my third viewing, but I never caught it in theaters. I definitely only caught it after the fact.
Oh, really? Interesting. I'm actually, I don't know how much I've watched it at home since then. So this could be my third viewing as well, but I saw it twice in theaters, and then it's sat since. Yeah, anyway. Of course, we'll start spoiler-free as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we get into the spoilers, and of course, if you're enjoying the show on YouTube, do hit the like button. It helps us out a bunch, and you can give us 5 stars on the podcast apps and whatnot. You can also support us over at Patreon or via YouTube membership and get bonuses, but I'll tell you more about that at the end of the episode, as well as David's homework movie, which he always does at the end of the show.
Oh, is it time for you to remember that I do that at the beginning?
Yes.
I thought we were like another 50 episodes till then. That's neat.
I've improved. It's only been 25 episodes this time, and things are getting better.
Yeah.
So, yes, we'll get into things. Basic premise of this is that we are set in space. We are up in orbit with we're eventually at the ISS, but we're kind of at the Hubble telescope, I think, to begin with. And it's just a mission where they're doing some technical stuff up there, but some debris from a destroyed satellite causes a lot of chaos, hits them, and puts them into disarray. And it's effectively a movie about one woman, Sandra Bullock's character, surviving on her own and trying to get back down to Earth. That's the premise of the movie. I mean, that's what the whole thing can be summed up as. Obviously, there's a couple other characters early on, but for the most part, she is doing this as a one-woman show. And I don't think that's a spoiler to say that. So, yeah, we'll get into it. I think, obviously, this came out kind of not necessarily in the apex of the 3D era, but it was definitely one of the better examples of, hey, this was actually shot with 3D in mind when it came out in 2013. And I never saw it in 3D. By that point, I was already done with 3D. But people did say this was one of the few good examples of like, hey, this one may actually be worth seeing in 3D because it works in 3D.
Yeah, I mean, it's the sort of thing where watching it for probably the first, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, something like that, right before the real action kicks off, I'd forgotten that it was a 3D movie. But then there's a couple shots in here that I'm like, oh, right, yeah, this would have looked amazing in 3D.
Yeah, but it's not like that 3D showy either. Like there's like one moment early on where like a bolt's like floating towards the camera and like she reaches out and grabs it or whatever, and like it's like a nothing moment, and it's the only time in the whole thing where I felt like that's just there because it's in 3D. Everything else would have happened regardless, even if it was shot for 2D.
No, absolutely. But the one that reminded me of it was there's a moment where she's spinning around really fast and like the camera stays in place, and the moment she like passes by, I'm like, all right, yeah, I can see that happening.
Yeah. So yeah, I just wanted to get that out there and mention it because I'm not going to bring up 3D again for the rest of this whole review. Right. So just wanted to throw it out there up front.
Do you think, I mean, this may be a completely moot point, but do you think that's lost media? Do you think like a lot of 3D releases, like the way they're in 3D, are just completely lost to time now?
To an extent, I mean, like, it's not impossible to, like, have a 3D TV still, because they were being made for a while, but modern TVs now don't even have that feature. You have to really get out of your way to get them, and the 3D movies, like, there were 3D on Blu-ray, but the 4K Blu-rays, they didn't bother, I think, for most of them. It's like, oh, no one cares about this anymore, so...
Yeah,
they're kind of in danger of becoming that. I mean, I think technically my Apple version of this is 3D capable if I happen to have a 3D TV to pair it up with. Right. I don't, and I don't care about 3D, so I'm never going to care. But So technically, I think digitally, some of these movies still are available in that form if you have the display capable of showing them. But those displays, I mean, I'm sure there's still some new 3D TVs being sold that still just have the feature. Like,
that strikes me as the sort of thing that's like one manufacturer in Korea is like still pumping those out and nothing else.
well, no, because I think you're thinking about it the wrong way. It's not like something they have to focus on. It's just like a feature it might have, right? So it's just a sort of thing of like, oh, like TVs still have this old port on them because it's really not that much of a cost to just include it for the sake of compatibility reasons. There might still be a couple of models or brands of TV that still just throw it in there as why not. It might as well be there because it's not causing much of a ruckus not to. But that's kind of it. It's there kind of because it's not inconvenient or expensive to have it, if it is there at all, which I'm not even convinced it is. I'm just saying that there might be a couple of outliers that still just throw it on there.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Because, I mean, if they're the only game in town that do it, then at least anyone who cares about it will have to go to them. So, I mean, they've got the market cornered, if nothing else.
True.
But yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, though, is that almost everything that was made for 3D works perfectly fine, if not better, in 2D, because it's just, movies worked that way for a long time for a reason. So yes, but we'll get into things. I mean, I'm just going to go out and I'm here. I'm going to assume that you enjoy this movie, but you feel free to confirm or deny that at this juncture.
Yeah, no, I do enjoy this movie. I think the big thing that it maybe wasn't being pushed on, but the one thing that everyone was coming out was that technically it feels very, very well done. It feels, it looks like they did a whole bunch of like oneers that take like 10 plus minutes throughout this movie. The special effects, the way, because
asterisks.
Yeah, of course it's not actual oneers.
Yeah,
it's
like
CG assisted.
They're presented as oneers, but like when everything's in like a green screen room and everyone's so disconnected and between those CG elements, like they didn't have to film any of it like a oneer, really, right? They could have done it every little bit on its own separately. So, and I'm not saying it's not impressive for other reasons, but I just in terms of a oneer, it's not impressive.
Yeah, but I mean, you go into that with the suspension of disbelief. You go in with the idea of, I'm not thinking about the background of like, this is all just green screen or whatever. And you take it as presented, and it does feel impressive. But no, the other half of that is obviously the zero-G effects. Like, this does it fantastically. It's a thing where they don't shy away from doing difficult stuff because it is having to look however it is in zero-G. And if I remember correctly, the post-production on this was like years upon years of trying to get this stuff all sorted out. So overall, technically, it's a fantastic looking movie. I think it's a very well paced movie as well. I think the only thing that falls a little bit flat for me is the actual like emotional impact side of the story. Not in that I don't think it's there, but I think at times it gets just a little bit too hokey in a lot of ways. There's a couple points where I think like, okay, this could like, they went too far. They said like an extra line that didn't need to be said or something like that. And it barely hurts the movie, but it is the one thing that I think is the weakest part overall out of the whole stuff. But no, it's an enjoyable ride top to bottom, and it is a very well paced to the point where like by the time that we were wrapping up the movie, I was shocked at how fast it felt like it had flown by. It was very well paced there. So yeah, good.
Yeah, I mean, it's 90 minutes, and I think that's a smart choice because when you've got a movie that's going to be so focused and it's one person trying to survive, I think trying to make it any longer than 90 minutes would start to feel like it's just, taking the piss. It start to feel like it was dragging. I think you'd have to know with this type of premise to keep it tight, and I think that's what it does. No, I mean, I love the movie. When it came out, it was a technical showpiece. It's, obviously got lots of thrills. It's a lot of cool visuals. There's a lot of emptiness, obviously, because we're in space, so that sense of isolation is there, and that does tie into the emotional stuff, which, well, I kind of agree that it gets a little bit hokey and sort of like dialogue or presentation at points. I think it is actually still very important to have it there because ultimately it gives the movie a bit of subtext beyond just try to survive, which I do think elevates it a little bit and makes some bits land a little bit better. I think the music's fantastic. I think it's got a phenomenal score that always sticks out to me. The soundtrack in general, in terms of sound effects, obviously it uses the fact that they're in space a lot, where all you're hearing is like their radios for a good
yeah.
chunk of the movie, that kind of thing. It presents things as a oneer. I mean, the opening, 15-20 minutes are mostly one shot. I mean, again, presenting as one shot. I mean, obviously, when you're panning from one person in space to the other person in space, they can literally shoot them in months apart and it wouldn't, matter. But yeah, I mean, that stuff's great. I love that, once we do get to her on her own, there's not that much talking. It's a very visual film because of that. It's fun seeing the problem solving happen. Most things are set up and paid off. Is there any contrivances, some nice little coincidences so that there's a chance of surviving? Yes, that's there because it is that type of movie. There has to be a chance, and there has to be, the back door that one can get through if the occasion calls for it. Honestly, though, there's only one moment in the whole movie where I feel like at least to my more layman understanding of space science, and sort of pulls up a red flag where I'm like, oh, this one part feels a little bit forced maybe for the sake of advancing the story.
I'm wondering if we're thinking the same exact moment, because there's one thing that absolutely, as soon as it happened, I'm like, that's not how space works.
Yeah, but generally speaking, obviously it uses the fact that we're in zero G and thirsting to get to a certain place, the idea of momentum, the idea of just how screwed you are if you're not tethered to something. The idea of you go floating into space, that's you're done for. There's a genuine thrill element to this. There's thrilling sequences. And it's really well directed. It's a really tight little package that I like quite a bit. And it's actually funny because obviously Alfonso Cuarón's a very celebrated director for a few different movies. Obviously Children of Men is the other one that we'll do on this show at some point because it's sci-fi. But I was surprised to find that his last movie was still Roma when I looked up, and that came out in 2018.
Was he taking a break?
Well, he's been doing a TV show or something in that time, but he's got 3 upcoming projects listed. So I mean, it's entirely possible to be an onslaught of Cuarón content hitting when all of it's ready. But it's actually, his list of movies is not that extensive in the grand scheme of things. There's there's little episodes of TV shows in between and things like that, and whatnot. Why Tuma Matambin's obviously was his kind of rise to prominence, and he did a Harry Potter movie, which I mean, most people who like those movies think it's one of the best ones, but I mean, it's Harry Potter.
Yeah, look, you're gonna reach a cap with that if you don't like Harry Potter to begin with. That's fine.
Yeah. So, a sorting cap. That's a Harry Potter joke, I think.
Close enough.
It's a hat, at least, right? It's a hat.
Yeah, it's a sorting hat. Yeah.
A cap, but it's the hip trendy new version is the cap, all right? You don't need this old witch's hat anymore. You get the cap.
Yeah, just get the little fisherman's cap. That's just how you get into Hogwarts.
Yeah, just have a little, and throw on get a branded one, get a sports brand on there. Why not? Just make it
perfect.
Make it work.
I mean, that's what the HBO's coming out with, the new Harry Potter TV series. So I'm sure it's all going to be super updated and modern, and everyone's going to be saying 6'7", 6'7".
Shut up. I want to hear what these alphas are saying on the playground. Thank you very much. So yes, it was very good. So obviously we get Sandra Bullock in the lead role. We have George Clooney in kind of the biggest supporting role as another astronaut early on, the experienced astronaut who knows what he's doing primarily. And interestingly, Mission Control, the voice, which I recognized instantly, is Ed Harris, who notably effectively played the same role in Apollo 13.
Yeah, I have to imagine Alfonso Cuarón just approached him and was just like, you want to make $50? In reality, it's probably 100,000, but still.
Yeah, whatever his going rate is, but it's hey, this is a neat little callback to something else you did, and yeah, I mean, obviously, I mean, it's nice to hear him. It's okay, this works. It's a callback to Apollo 13, but I like Ed Harris from a bunch of stuff. Mainly The Abyss is my big thing, but
of course,
nice to hear all the same.
I think for me, probably Truman Show. I think it's my favorite Ed Harris.
I mean, I love Truman Show, but relatively speaking, he's a smaller part of that movie, so I think of The Abyss first. Yeah. So, yeah. Anywho, movie's great. It's thrilling. Although, funny enough, because it is only 90 minutes and because it is kind of an action not a set piece per se, but it's action upon action upon action. It's all very much momentum to the next thing. I suspect it may not actually be that long a conversation relative to something with a bit more of an intricate plot, but
yeah,
we
no,
can
I
get
mean,
to stuff.
I think the biggest thing we would be able to talk about is any time that like they did something during the set piece that feels like very specifically, wow, that's an incredible shot, or wow, that's a amazing piece they pulled out there. But in terms of like recapping the story, it's just gonna fly by.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the thing with the cinematography and talking about how like certain moments are directed, obviously there's a lot of like continuous stuff in the first like 15, 20 minutes. And, you know, when it does cut, it feels like a sharp edit because there's not been a lot of edits up until that point. But, you know, even something as simple as like the first time she's into the space station, there's like a POV shot for a while inside the visor, and it feels like, you know, you feel the crampness of it and just hear the heavy breathing, and it's like, oh, geez, this feels like uncomfortable. Like I feel her discomfort of this entire process, right? You know?
Yeah, no, during the opening sequence, there is a moment where, you know, they spend a little bit of time with her just completely alone, untethered, whatever like that. And it does a fantastic job of feeling the emptiness and the loneliness of space, of like, there is nothing here. You are completely alone in this. And it's, especially with you were mentioning before, the sound design. Sound design is so cleverly done in terms of they take into account you can't hear anything in space, and the only time that there are little things, little twinges to it, is when like their hands are touching
So
the
you
machines
feel
themselves.
it through, you'd feel the vibration through the material.
Exactly. And it's so, if there were ever a movie that when we get to the ratings at the end, the ratings rundown, that gets a big old plus on sound design, it's going to be this one.
Yeah. And also a fantastic score, like I said. You know, the music's great too. So, I mean, the audio is top notch pretty much throughout, and visuals aren't far behind it either, to be honest.
Yeah.
You know, as far as, you know, obviously, like there's maybe a little bit of fire at one point where I'm like, okay, I can feel the CG-ness of this a little bit. But it's like, I mean, almost all of the movie's a visual effects shot. So if there's only one or two moments where I'm going, oh, this feels a bit off, like then they've done some good work here.
Well, fire's the weird thing for me, because I've seen clips of like fire in space and it doesn't look anything at all like normal fire looks, because the way fire looks is because it's like trying to go up. So maybe they did their research and that's what fire would actually look like in space, but it just hits that uncanny valley because it's not what we're expecting.
That's possible, yeah. I mean, maybe it's just my expectations of what fire looks like, but or maybe a mix of like I can see the CG-ness of it, but because it's also moving in a way that I'm unexpecting, that it's adding to the fakeness for me, where I'm like, oh, this is really sticking out now, has been a sore thumb. When reality, maybe they've actually put a lot of effort into making it accurate to what it would be like in zero G. So no, I mean, honestly, it's probably time to go to spoilers soon. It's a quick, quick entry or re-entry, as we may say here.
I mean, easy way to say it, if you don't want to stick around for spoilers, is check it out. If you haven't seen it already, definitely give it a watch. Yeah,
it's great. It's great. 90 minutes, it's thrilling. It's very accessible, I think. Unless you're someone who like is going to hate the fact that there's quiet sections and you think that's like dull, but like it's a very thrilling, exciting movie. This is not necessarily us recommending some niche little foreign sci-fi movie that's quirky or anything like that.
Yeah, I will say, if you want to get the full experience out of this movie, don't watch this with like someone who's going to be playing Candy Crush on their phone right next to you with the volume on. Like, you got to appreciate the silence in this one.
Silence, ideally in the dark, like really get immersed, do the whole shebang. So we'll say spoilers so we can start talking about it, and we'll get into all of gravity. So I think first thing out of the way, right, rather than, I mean, I'm sure we'll go through some of the events in the movie in order, but I think just first up, let's just talk about the character of Ryan Stone, Sandra Bullock's character, and talk about her motivations, what she goes through in the movie, just sort of package that into a discussion, because I feel like try to sprinkle that throughout as we go would be kind of weird. So yeah, her whole thing, you know, obviously she's the inexperienced one. We find out she's a doctor who is up here installing some prototype of technology that she's developed for hospital use, but it's got a purpose on the satellite for some reason. They don't really go into it in too much detail, and we don't need to know exactly what it is. The whole point is though is that she's had 6 months of space training because she had to come up here, but she's not an experienced astronaut who's, you know, whereas George Clooney's character is like, oh, I'm getting close to the record of like minutes spacewalking. I'm all excited about this. She is nervous. She feels kind of sick in the suit. And this is before anything bad happens. This is just her level of discomfort before shit hits the fan. And then once it does, obviously she's panicking. She's having to be talked to very calmly by George Clooney to keep her breathing steady and all the rest of it. But her big thing, once we actually get her talking, which comes a good chunk into the movie, is that, you know, because he's saying, hey, so what's down there for you? Like, where do you live? Like, what's your life like? What, you know, what have you got back to? You got a husband? And the big thing about her backstory that we find out is that she had a daughter, a 4-year-old daughter who died. Nothing dramatic. It just fell and hit her head, and that was it. She's gone. And it really kind of presents this idea of a character who was already very detached to, like, the world, you know, in a you know, not a literal sense, but now she is because she's in space. But the idea that space is a metaphor for her being kind of like separated from everyone else. And the story of the movie is her ultimately choosing that she wants to go back, that she wants to live again. And there's straight up a shot when she gets to the ISS where it looks like she's in a womb because she goes into a fetal position and the hose that's in the background looks like an umbilical cord. Like, it's straight up like a rebirth thing going on with the whole character.
Yeah, the whole movie is the rebirth storyline. The entire thing of it is going through this. As the womb shot is absolutely the signifier, but then by the time we hit the end and like she's taking her first steps and they do show it like very shakily sort of thing. It's like, no, this is her, you know, coming into her own, rebirth again. She's stepping out into the world. Like, all of it is putting into that narrative, and I like it. I don't think it's too heavy-handed. I think it's great for what the character's doing here of basically finding her purpose again and re-evaluating her views on life, because essentially the way that she philosophically came out of the death of her daughter is like just ghosting through, just not having a purpose, very much just whatever happens to her is whatever happens to her. Not in like a nihilistic sense, but she's not trying for anything.
Yeah, just detached. I think the example she gives is that she would just like, she'd go to work and stuff, but then she'd just drive, but with no real sense of destination. And one of the lines she says late in the film when she's about to try and really survive, because this is after her whole, we'll get to her giving up for a minute, is she says, oh, it's time to actually drive somewhere, you know, kind of have a destination in mind. And, you know, so they really sort of try and, you know, set things up and then pay it off later with her decisions by the end of the movie.
Yeah. And I think that's, you know, solid character writing. It does a great job of, you feel the pain she's going through, and then by the time we hit the end of it, this is obviously the emotional core of the movie. And while I like the story overall, every once in a while there's a line that she says that I think is just a little bit too hokey, just a little bit too much of the, like, stating what the character is thinking too much. That line you were saying of like, no more just driving or anything like that, like, that's the moment that she's about to do like the big action sequence. I was like, I don't know, did we really need to say that like out loud? I feel like we could have gotten it through actions.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all right for like a definitive statement of her saying F it, I want to live. Like, I think you get away with like one real declaration of that as like a sort of moment. You know, because the whole thing when she, you know, like, obviously it's a series of things not working, and like, okay, this is the plan, oh, that's not going to work, so this is the plan now, so that's not going to work, so this is the plan now, and eventually we've got to the Shenzhou, the well, actually not even
Chinese
there yet.
Space Station.
We're not in that yet. Actually, we're still in the Soya. Is that what they call the ones from the ISS?
No, because that's what she was saying. I think that's the Russian one. Is the Soyuz? Maybe it is. I don't know. Regardless, yeah, she's in the ISS and she's in the escape pod there.
Yeah, the Russian one comes from the ISS. Yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay, never mind. I thought that was a Russian satellite as well.
No, it's the International Space Station. There's Russians on there.
Why does China have their own? I'm so confused.
Because China are like, we want our own stuff, even though it's the exact same stuff with different text on it.
They weren't a part of the Cold War. We don't have to worry about them.
But yeah, when she's in there and she's basically like, oh, there's no fuel left to thrust over to the Chinese station to get to their like escape pod things. She's like, oh shit, well, I guess this is it. And she's getting cold, and she's picking up like a radio broadcast or a radio down on Earth, and it's just some random guy who speaks a different language. There's a dog barking in the background. And she's basically just saying, okay, I'm just going to go to sleep and die. Like, I'm going to turn the oxygen levels down. I'm just going to go. I'm giving up. And she has and you know, I want to make it clear here that there's a sequence here where George Clooney taps on the window, and he opens the door, he comes in, he sits down, and basically gives her the idea that there is like another way out of this, that there's other thrusters on this thing for when it's supposed to land, which you're not going to do. You can't take this down, but you could use that to like propel yourself over to the other station.
Yeah.
And I want to make it clear here, because I think one of the sort of the worst like weird trends of the last like 5 or 6 years has been the weird twist that someone who's like in a survival situation, like there's two characters, and then the twist near the end is that one of them's been dead since the start of the movie, and the main character's just been imagining the whole time. I want to make it clear that this does not fall into that category, because from the second it starts happening, the movie is not trying to trick you. The movie straight up shows you him opening the door to space, and then she's okay. Clearly, this is not actually happening.
Yeah, like he's sitting there like tap, 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 and she's just looking over, and then he starts to open up. She's not wearing a helmet. She's not prepared at all, and all she does is cover her face. And then when he closes the door again, she's like, hey, what's up? And I'm like, okay, well, clearly this isn't happening.
Also, the lighting changes. It's like a warm glow all of a sudden when he comes in, because it's like this idea of the warmth of his presence, and like, hey. So the idea makes sense. Again, layman kind of understanding of all this stuff, but the idea that, yeah, there's separate thrusters for landing, you could basically Frankenstein those into this purpose and get over there. So yeah, it makes enough sense and all the rest of it. So yeah, I think her character stuff is really good, and I think the final scene being her finally standing up on Earth, one of my favorite little bits of this, I love the way the music soars as it cuts to the credits and all that, but is that there's a weird perspective on her standing up, where obviously they do a low angle shot looking up at her, so she feels really big and tall and like triumphant. But as she walks off just before it cuts to the credits, I think it's because there's like a bush that looks kind of like a tree, but it looks like she's a kaiju. It looks like she's like 100 foot tall walking through wherever she's landed. And I don't think she actually is, obviously. It just does this weird perspective to it where I'm like, yeah, she feels like she's on top of the world.
Yeah, all right. I see what you're talking about there. Yeah. I never even considered that, but you're right. It just because it cuts before you can actually see like her feet on the ground. So all you see is the tree line, which is like far away and significantly below her. Yeah, it gives a kaiju sort of feel to it.
Well, which works in the moment, honestly. I don't think it's a bad thing. It actually kind of adds to the feeling of victory, and like obviously she's like squeezing the sand in the in her hand when she like touches it. She's like, oh yes, the ground, gravity. That's what we've been trying to get the whole time, is some gravity. We've been lacking it. Actually, for a movie called Gravity, there's a surprising lack of gravity for like 99% of the movie.
It's supposed to be the gravitas that the characters provide. That's the gravity.
Yeah, it's about missing it. Well, obviously, I mean, the more metaphorical take is that it's about what pulls her back to Earth, kind of thing. So and I realize that gravity literally kind of does that too, but you know what I mean.
Talk about the metaphor. It's all symbolism, top to bottom.
Yeah, we know what we're talking about. Anyway, so I know I like the character stuff a lot. I mean, I don't disagree that maybe there's a couple of lines here or there that maybe overdo it. I almost wonder, because it is such a quiet movie once it gets going, where it is just this very focused premise, that there was just a concern of like, we really want to make sure everyone gets the layers to this, because we're worried that if they miss it, then it's going to feel too simple.
Right. It's not going to feel like she went through the actual like stuff. It's just going to feel like all of a sudden she's like, now I'm ready to go back home. Like you want to show the steps being taken. I understand that, but I do think there is a middle ground that they were probably just a little bit too far on one side of. The one bit that I do like from a narrative perspective of, why is it that like they're still talking so much despite the fact that there's nothing going on, is that George Clooney very early on says the radios are out with Houston, but we keep on talking just in case someone is picking up, and because that way that's our best chance of getting saved, is if someone happens to be picking up, they might be able to send rescue. So anytime that she's like got a new plan in mind, or they're going to be trying something new here, she always narrates it out, because in the story, it's for whoever's listening's sake. For our sake, though, it's letting us know what the next step here is.
Well, just to clarify, it's not just specifically for anyone. Like, there is a chance, the way he phrases it, Houston still might hear us. They may just not be able to talk back to us. And if they can hear us, if someone is listening, then we should be making clear what we're doing and where we are at all times, so that they understand where, because even at the end when she does go down on her own, it's like, no, someone needs to come and get her. Like, she's landing somewhere random on Earth. Like, someone needs to come and find her.
Well, I was also the reason I said anyone is because they also said, if someone on the ISS is listening before they get to the ISS, and if someone on the Shenzhou is listening before we get over there.
Yeah, of course, by the time we get there, clearly no one was coming to help from those locations. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, the whole thing is, like, they say, like, a Russian satellite got blown up or something at the start, and they say, well, at first they say, we don't think it's a concern. And then they keep talking for like 2 minutes, and then immediately they're like, abort mission, get back on the ship right now. Come back down to Earth.
So the whole conceit of the movie, the whole problem of the movie here is that the Russians blew up their own spy satellite or something like that from way back in the day, instead of letting it fall into enemy hands. And in doing so, a bunch of debris started colliding with other space objects, which made more debris. And so now there's just this cloud of space debris orbiting the Earth, and it's just assailing everything else in its path, which apparently is an actual real thing that is a threat to all satellites because they're all basically in the same band around the planet.
Yeah, no, I mean, I remember hearing about this, that there was actually like a really expensive operation about cleaning debris that's in orbit because it never goes anywhere. It just keeps orbiting. Yeah. So it ends up being quite messy up there if they don't keep care of it. So, it's a whole thing. But so you get this speeding debris coming in at a very, very fast rate, and there's like a third guy named Sharif, who we never see his face. We see his face once he's dead, but like
we see half his face.
Yeah, we see there's a big hole in it when we finally see it. But we see that he's dancing. It makes him kind of likable up front. Obviously, and I think another thing that really sets up the character of Ryan is that George Clooney, despite the fact that maybe you're saying, oh, this is just his shtick because he's this kind of guy, but I think it's very intentional that he loves telling stories about his past and talking about his like times on Earth, because it makes him feel very much like it's important to him to talk about people and where he's from and what he's went through, whereas Sandra Bullock's character, by comparison, is not opening up at all. She's not talking about any of this stuff. She's telling them to turn the music off. And again, she's not in a super cold, like, I'm being a grump, I'm ruining all the fun way. But she's just not being that. She's not like opening up about her past. She's not reminiscing about anything, because from her perspective, like, there is no happy memories, like, right now for her. She's, everything's misery. So, it's very much showing you that even though he's up here and he's an experienced astronaut who's come up here like multiple times since the 90s, by the sounds of it, the way he's talking, it sounds like, it's always important to keep that tether. And, again, literally there's a tether between them at a certain point in this. So...
yeah, like I really appreciate the fact that some of the first things he does is he talks about these stories from his past, and he tells them like tall tales, essentially, like this. You won't believe what happened at Tijuana this year or whatever. But he's not telling things that like make him out to be a hero or anything like that. It's not like he's just bolstering his own ego. He's just telling funny stories of like weird things that happened to him. So it's not this thing where it's like, oh, I'm only remembering the good times or anything like that. Or like, it's literally the ideal of what Sandra Bullock's character is probably trying to aspire to, of like being able to look back at those times, good and bad, and like take them all rather than just focusing on the bad or just focusing on the good.
Yeah. I think it's a good contrast between them that sets up her character and makes him kind of a mentor effectively in this first chunk to her in so many ways. But once the debris starts coming in and there's a lot of chaos and flipping around, I mean, Sandra Bullock's on like an arm, that she's working on this tech stuff, and the arm gets severed from the rest of the satellite, and she just starts, spinning with that, and it's like, oh, you need to disconnect from that. So when she eventually does, we get the shot that I think everyone remembers from the trailer, is where she just lets go of it and she starts spinning out into space, and she's just this little white dot in the darkness, just going off further and further to the point where it feels hopeless. Luckily, of course, George Clooney's wearing like a sort of, I'll call it a jetpack, even though that's maybe not entirely the right name for it.
I'm sure it's like a spacewalk suit. Yeah. Like it's specifically made to be able to glide around in space.
Yeah, the idea is that you can change what direction you're floating in by little thrusters going off. So he's zooming around in that, and he comes and gets her eventually. But there's a good few minutes here of her spinning, not knowing where she is, not hearing people, not being able to talk to anyone.
Like Clooney's saying like, hey, you got to give me a read, you got to tell me what's up, and then slowly his radio just like fades out and you just hear her like breathing heavily, begging for help, and then just silence. And as an audience member, you're sitting there like, I'm uncomfortable. And I know that's the point, but Jesus.
I mean, it's like 15 minutes out of the movie by this point, if that. And I love the idea that it just cuts the credits and like, like, oh, that's it. That's movie over. Off we go.
Oh man, we cut to there was a point. So when we get later on, George Clooney, he kind of drifts off into space as well. I kind of wanted to do like a cut over to I'm gonna blank on the name of it. What was that other remake that was crap of George Clooney on that planet?
Oh, Solaris?
Solaris, that was it. I want to say Solarium, that wasn't right. Yeah, I just want to cut with that and say like, and this is what he did afterwards.
No, I think it's interesting to bring that up though. Like when he floats off out of space, but it's very different context where he lets himself go to save her, but he floats off peacefully, right? And he's content with that decision. And I think it's very interesting to compare again these two characters in these two specific moments where she's spiraling out of control and has no like impact in what she's doing and is terrified and is breathing heavy. He's letting go because he's like, had his life. He knows the context of why he's doing this. And he's telling her she needs to survive, and that's why he's letting go, kind of thing. Now, admittedly, the moment where he lets go is the one moment where I think the science is a bit weird, and I don't think it really works. But we'll get to that when we get more specifically to the action side of it. But but from like a thematic point of view of comparing the characters and how one is spinning out into space and how the other one lets go calmly and is content with like the life he's lived, kind of thing. There's a good contrast there.
Yeah, it basically shows like, here's the different styles of living. Here's the one who is insecure with their life and like doesn't like the way that's turned out. Here's the one who's done literally everything they want to do. And how does that react when they're facing the end? What happened? Like, how do they approach that in their different mindsets? And it's obviously George Clooney's character is the ideal. It's the way that you would expect characters who have made that sort of piece to go. But I like that they don't put Sandra Bullock's like a coward or anything either. Like she's clearly making do with what she can here, and she's terrified, but it's not like she's hindering the progress of anyone either. Like she's helping and she's doing what she can to make this work for everybody.
No, I mean, she's scared. She's obviously not got as much experience, and she's panicking at points, but like that's another big part of like when he leaves the movie. He's like, oh, now she's on her own. Shit, she has to do this by herself, and it makes it a bit more tense because we've seen that he's been kind of carrying her up until this point. And again, not in a way where she's this hindrance, but certainly in a way where it feels like, oh, she needs that help, and now she's on her own. And it's like, oh, she has to rise to the challenge, and that's like part of the tension and the drama of it. So, this whole thing where he comes out and gets her, of course, right? She flashes a light so he can see her. And they go back to the space shuttle, but it's destroyed, right? It's been torn apart. There's dead bodies floating in there, characters we never even really heard. I think we had like one voice briefly at one point, and they're dead. Everything's floating around, and they're like, shit, we're the only survivors. The only hope we've got is to spacewalk over to the ISS and hope we can use one of the pods to go down. So that becomes it. And this is actually where we get our first sort of like time moving forward, because there's a whole thing where he says set your watch for 90 minutes because he's like, they said it was going so many thousand miles an hour, this debris, so that means roughly 90 minutes before it's back and we have to deal with it again.
I forgot we did a time skip.
You thought it was going to be the end of the movie? I
thought they were just like one for one, here we go, 90 minutes, that's how long the movie is.
To be fair, it is a bit more realistic probably that it took longer to get over to the space station.
I'm sure.
If anything, you could argue that them being this close to the space station and then the Chinese station being that close, like all close enough to travel between them, is maybe very coincidental. Maybe it's not. Maybe they are intentionally close together, but...
Well, all the space stations are pretty much in about like the same altitude, give or take. So they would at least be in the same ring. I don't know about like distance around the Earth or anything like that. The Hubble is way further out. It is in like high Earth orbit instead of low Earth orbit. So that's the one thing that they were like, yeah, we're just going to squeeze those together, make that happen.
There could be a reason why like multiple space stations are close together in terms of like, distance. Maybe there's a reason for it. That maybe the reason is, hey, if one has a problem, the other one can help because they're not too far away. Maybe that's the whole point.
They're just like hanging out on weekends. Try to stay close.
None of the space stations themselves, I think, have any sort of transport where they could move between them, but
I mean, I'm sure, they got to be able to bring people up there. So theoretically, there should be a ship docked at any point, but I don't know if that would be a ship capable of moving in space instead of just back down to Earth.
Well, I mean, yeah, the ship would come up, but it would also take people back down again, presumably, right?
Oh,
so it wouldn't always be there.
Fair enough, yeah. Assuming that the people leave immediately after other people come up, yeah.
Yeah, I'm assuming that a couple people come up, and like the two people who are going home, the shift's ending, so they're going down, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, I mean, this is where we get a little bit of the exposition of the characters, and he tries to keep her talking, tries to keep her calm and thinking about home, and basically trying to keep her spirits up and want her to, live effectively. And her oxygen's like been running out. She's like 5%, 2%, like it's going down as we get there. Eventually it actually hits 0, and he's like, hey, the tank's empty, but there's still oxygen in your suit for now. Just, breathe gently. No deep breath, just this little sips of oxygen. That's all you need.
And that's when they're like 5 minutes away from the ISS. But at that point, his jetpack is also on fumes, and he's like, I have one good spurt left in me, so we're gonna get right as close as we can to the ISS, and then I'm just gonna floor it.
Hey, George Clooney's at an age where he may only have one good spurt left in him.
Nah, man, that guy's the pinnacle of masculinity.
I will say, though, as they're getting close to the station, though, you can see that, okay, one Suya has been taken down. Obviously, whoever was there evacuated, understandably, given what was happening. And then the second one seems to have malfunctioned, and the parachute's been deployed, and it's like all tangled up. I love the visual of this, and I love that. Obviously, it's used heavily in some story beats coming up, so it's good that it's been set up. But I do think it creates such a weird, unique visual that there's all these tangled cables of the parachute, all just like all over the outside of it. But at the very least, it ends up being what saves her, because it like grabbed, her leg catches onto it as she's floating past once they're trying desperately to latch onto something.
That's look, I'm sure it's actually realistic, and I've seen it in tons of other sci-fi movies, so it's not like it's something that's just a, we're just doing this for the sake of tension. But like, you would think at a certain point that like NASA would be able to come up with something of like magnets in the gloves, because dear God, the number of times in this movie that it's just scramble, try to grab something, and then it just ends up floating off until they get to the very, very last bar is at least double digits.
It happens a few times. It's always good and exciting when it happens. Your solution seems like a good idea. Maybe there's a reason why they don't do that. Maybe maybe it's just a case of, hey, we can't afford to build new spacesuits. Like we're using the ones we've got. Deal with it. I don't know.
Made these suckers in 1965, and we're gonna stick with them.
But no, I mean, it's a thrilling enough sequence. But obviously, the big thing here that feels a little bit weird to me is that she gets tangled up in the cables, and he's still floating, but she's able to like grab the tether, right? The disconnected, but she's able to grab it, so she's got a line to him. And he says, "I need to let go. The cables are too loose. I'm going to pull you with me." And my understanding of moving in space, and admittedly, not an expert, but once your momentum is stopped, you're stopped. That's it. So to me, I'm pretty sure he's just stopped drifting now because he's been stopped, right?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely correct. The fact that when he disconnects, he immediately starts like floating off into that direction kills any theory of like being able to solve it. Because you're right, he shouldn't have momentum still pushing him that way. My understanding in the moments right before that disconnect was, in order to pull him back, in order to get him back over, she would have to apply some momentum like forward away from the ship. Like she'd have to pull herself closer to him, and that would loosen up the cables enough that it would be a threat, that they'd both be disconnected at that point. But yeah, once he disconnects and he starts flying off, it's like, well, all right, he clearly just has some magic force being pushed on him for no reason.
It's very shaky though, because I'm like, yeah, but she could just like reattach the tether and start climbing back up the ropes, and he would just come with her, or he could climb up the tether himself, towards her, kind of thing. It feels like there's options here, and it feels a little bit forced for the sake of like this is his time to leave the movie. And like I say, the comparisons with her floating in space earlier are very good. So like from like a filmmaking standpoint, there's a lot of things to like about this scene.
Right.
It's just the science of it feels a little bit sketchy. And I'm sure to anyone who knows space well enough, I'm sure the whole movie's sketchy, but to us, this is the sketchy part.
Look, if we've got a spectrum of all of sci-fi, and like there is barely making any sense with the natural world, and then like a documentary on the other side, this is closer to the documentary side. Like it's definitely taking the effort to be a lot of making sense scientifically standpoints, but like this is the one thing that's like, okay, so this is just like a Star Trek teleporter at this point. Like, you're just making something up for the sake of the story needs it to happen.
But, I love the tension here because it's like, okay, her oxygen is done, her CO2 alarm's going off, and she has to climb manually up the side of the station to get to the airlock to get in. And I love, the climb is really slow and full of tension, of course. And the debris, I think, starts coming in soon, right?
Does it? No, because it starts coming in when she leaves the station.
That's right. So, but she's climbing and it's really tough and she's all that. But when she gets in, I love that she gets in the airlock, she shuts the door. Also, I love the momentum, the thrust of like, and this happens a couple times in the movie where she opens an airlock door and the door just swings open and I'm like, oh man, she could have easily just let go there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That was like a nail biting kind of thing. But when she gets in the airlock and she shuts the door, she has to hit a couple of buttons and wait for the air to pressurize as she's passing out in the suit. So you can just see this percentage counter going up on the little screen, and she's like just desperate to take the helmet off. And I just love that she's just about passing out, but she hears the beep and she takes off the helmet. And it's the first time we get to see her face without a helmet. So it's the first time you just get to see her up front properly. And like just her like breathing in a way that she's not been able to in some time. It's just a really good moment. And it's like, hey, and then we have we're in the womb fetal position kind of sequence.
Yeah, she's hit her lowest point. This is now her rebirth. This is how she starts to grow back out again, all on her own.
Yeah, and she tries to talk to George Clooney via the radio. She tries to contact Houston. It's not happening.
That's the other bit about George Clooney's death, which is obviously very heartbreaking, is as he's floating away, he's still in radio range. So as she's climbing up the side of the ISS, he's basically saying like, all right, since we're the only two people out here, and like I'm literally about to take it to my grave, you always had the hots for me, right? Like, yeah, and it's not played for a thing of like, he's actually trying to boost his ego. It's played for a thing of he's trying to calm her down. He's trying to keep her. He's trying to make her laugh,
yeah. And there's a nice callback here where earlier on in the movie, before anything started happening, he referenced her having beautiful blue eyes. And again, it wasn't it wasn't hitting on her. It was kind of just this like, again, he's just trying to be comforting. And she's like, oh, I've got brown eyes. And here she tells him he's got beautiful blue eyes, and he's like, I've got brown eyes. Like, he kind of throws it back in her. And he's trying to keep her calm, but he's also saying, hey, promise me you're going to live. Like, promise me you're trying. Like, he's he's definitely very aware that she might just give up at some point because this is going to seem really hard. And he's already told her, hey, the Chinese station's over there. You can get over there. You can. I mean, we can't land with this pod, but you can drive it over there. Got a nice little Sunday drive over to that station. And she's like, I can't fly that. I can't land it. And he's like, it's the exact same as ours. It's just, different, symbols on the buttons.
It follows all the same specifications. You just gotta figure out where the buttons are. And she's like, okay, but every single time I was in the simulator, I crashed it. And it's like, well, then you've got experience. Here we go.
Well, my favorite line that he gives her is that you just have to point it at Earth. It's not rocket science. And I'm like, my dude, it's literally rocket science.
Nah, the rocket science is for the nerds who had to figure out how much fuel to put in. This is just button pushing.
Yeah. So, very quickly, though, she obviously an alarm goes off and there's a fire somewhere in the station and she has to go. And obviously it sets up the fire extinguisher, but I do love that she tries to put out the fire and it propels her back and she hits her head almost to like a disastrous amount. But I'm like, oh, that's very important for later though, because this is like a little thruster we can use out in space. So some smart setup. But she gets to the pod, she goes in and effectively tries to get it to disconnect and all the rest of it. But she has to like use her thrusters because the parachute's still tangled up to everything. She didn't think to go out and disconnect that or however you would do that first. So when she tries to fly away, all of a sudden these parachute cables just yank her back, and she starts, going around the station, and she's almost hitting it.
She's about to hit the station. Like it's yo-yoing her back. As she hits the station, that it's game over.
Yeah, so she's able to, go out and disconnect it, and this is when the debris starts showing up. And I love that she's in a Russian spacesuit now. You can see how different it looks. Yeah. And she's tinkering, and she knows that it's and she almost drops her like socket wrench thing, and she's like, so lots of tension. The debris coming back, and we saw how devastating it was before. And this time it actually just straight up tears the station apart, and she's very lucky to get away from it. Mm-hmm. But when she does, all that fuel she used trying to not hit the station, when she was tangled up in the parachute cables, was all her fuel. She has no thrusters left, and this is where she sort of thinks, "Oh no, like this is it. Like I'm screwed now." And then the ultimate resolution, of course, after she has like her little phone call and vision of George Clooney, is that no, the thrusters for landing will still be there because they've never been used. So I can sort of use them to kind of ballpark the trajectory and get there.
Yeah, I appreciate it from like a forward momentum sort of thing, and obviously this is where she comes into her own, and she's having to make decisions to choose to live herself rather than just following George Clooney's advice. But I do question, like, how did she know about this? Like, it obviously George Clooney told her in the vision or whatever, but it's all in her mind. We know it's in her mind. Did she just happen to remember this from some training, and then she's like, "Oh yeah, this will work"?
Yeah, I don't think this is an issue, honestly. I think this is exactly the sort of thing where you're trying to figure out a problem, you think there's no solution, and then you figure out a loophole because you've got the information at hand. You know this. You just need to like access it and think about it in the right way. Oh, I can use this cable to connect those two things, and this will make the whole thing work. Like, it's that type of moment. And it's in her head. Like, the information was there. I don't think that's implausible. I think it's one of the more plausible things of the whole movie.
Yeah, I guess it's just kind of the way it's presented is even after she comes up with it, she's thanking George Clooney's character. She's like, "Oh, thanks so much. I'm going to get out of this." I'm like, "It was you. You did it." Like, what?
Yeah, again, I don't get the complaint, though, because the whole point of it is that she is thanking George Clooney because he was the one keeping her calm earlier on, and because she calmed down and just thought about it like he did.
Okay. So you're okay. Yeah. All right. That makes sense. I was thinking of thanking it for the idea rather than thanking for the calming down aspect of it.
No, I think you're being pedantic is what I'm saying. I think you're being pedantic.
Well, good thing I'm the only one on this show who ever does that.
Hey, look, sometimes there's a time for pedantry, right?
Uh-huh.
That was not that time.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Movie's great. Love it.
Look, I'm just saying, I don't think this is an issue. I think you're seeing an issue where there isn't.
I'm not coming in here saying that, like, oh, it's a full point off. How dare they not explain this? Like, no, it's just a tiny little thing I noticed.
Yeah. But no, I mean, but as what I'm saying, though, I don't think there is a thing to notice because I think that it makes sense to me. This is a very human thing to sort of have the idea. And her thanking him, like, that's just her talking to herself. That doesn't really mean much. That's just her saying, hey, you gave me enough guidance that I was able to figure this problem out. Like, I figured out a problem on my own. Like, earlier on, he was giving her all the solutions. He even told her to go to the Chinese station. That wasn't even her idea. But this solution, she thought of on her own. So it's kind of an important moment for her solving the problems. And yeah, so she has to fly over there. That takes a little bit of time, of course, as well, and whatnot. The whole thing once she gets over there, though, is that the station, when she's getting close to it, she can see that the station's already, like, the orbit's decaying, like it's going down. We can see, like, the ripples around the solar panels and whatnot, and I'm like, shit, everything's just going bad today, and this thing's like going down,
dude. As soon as the opening scenes happen with, like, the cloud of debris building up, I was like, oh, okay, so space travel on Earth is now dead for, like, at least 2 decades minimum, while, like, all this debris is just going around in circles.
I mean, I don't even know what you do. A big net.
Yeah, pretty much.
Some big steel net to try and capture it all, but it's tethered to Earth, so it won't just go flying off. I don't know.
We're sending up a giant fly paper, and it'll just hang out there for a while.
Shoot more missiles at it to just make it into so tiny little bits that eventually it's just...
You say small? That I saw a image of some satellite or something like that where there was, like, a dime-sized piece of debris, but it was traveling so fast that it broke through like 4 layers of steel. So that small's not going to help it.
Yeah. Well, look, I realize that all these suggestions I'm making are stupid, right? I know that, right? To be clear, I am not offering actual practical solutions to this problem.
Come on, Pete. We need somebody like you at NASA to solve the problem of the Kessler syndrome.
No. So, I mean, again, this is like, it's very thrilling because it's very, because at this point, there's no resting. At this point, once she gets on that station, it's like straight into the pod. And like the station basically falls apart around her. And it's why when she actually is going down into the Earth's atmosphere, that we get like those glorious shots of like all the other debris. It basically looks like a bunch of meteors all like, going down with her. But it's the debris of this station that's also coming down through the atmosphere that looks great. And obviously the music here, like there's like a vocalist that comes in during the super high tense bit. That sounds really good. And it makes everything feel very big and epic and operatic even. So like all that stuff is great, and by this point, like she's made this choice to go down. That was all through the kind of the imagination sequence with George Clooney and the choosing not to die and all the rest. Because that's the thing is when she's talking about her daughter, and obviously the first couple of times she brings her up, it's just very cold. It's very like full of regret and all that. But when she's like punching stuff into the shouju, the Chinese pod that she's going to go down in, she's basically just talking about her daughter as if she's talking to George Clooney. It's like, hey, if you can hear me, tell my daughter, I'm proud of her, and like I found her red shoe, and she's basically just crossing off all these little things that maybe has been on her mind ever since her daughter died, and it's a whole thing. So
that's the one bit that like I think perfectly threads the line of hokey and actually like great character development there. I think it's more so on the character development side where it's like, this is potentially she's about to die. And so like, if it happens, she even says it out loud. It's like, look, if I end up dying in all this, or if I make it down, either way, no harm, no foul. And she's like, come to terms with it. She's managed to accept that her forward purpose could be scary. It could be something that puts her at risk, but at least she has purpose. Yeah,
she's basically accepting to, live the ride no matter where it takes her at this point, right? Because she's going down. She does say, either like I land and have a great story to tell, or I'm gone. But either way, like I'm committed. I'm committed to going down. Right. Let's see where this goes. So it's that sense of confidence that she's been missing the whole movie.
As she's coming down and like the shockwaves are really hitting that, she tries to do like the storytelling thing that George Clooney did. She's like, oh yeah, that reminds me of a story once. And then like a real big pound happens. She's like, all right, never mind on the story. Let's not do that.
Yeah. But I mean, the moment works though, because it's like, hey, she's kind of learned the lesson from him of trying to keep connected to humanity. But then she's like, it's okay if that's not my thing though. Like I could do it other ways.
Right. Yeah, I'm gonna find my own thing. Let's wait until I'm down on the ground to do that.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously it does feel quite big when you see water. You see, the distance and all that, and you see atmosphere, because it's like, oh, this is so like most of the movie's been in space, so it's been all this like infinite black with these like structures of white, and then we have like other colors finally in the movie, and. Yeah, I love the idea that there's this danger that she might drown when she lands, because she opens the door and the water just starts flooding in, and it's like, oh no, not after all this. Come on. Oh
yeah, it's such a pain in the ass, because of the debris and all that stuff hitting her escape pod as she's leaving, it's caused an electrical fire inside the pod, so she can't stay there. But then as soon as she gets out, she's still in her spacesuit, so she's immediately like heavier. She's going to drown in that. But then also the pod itself is going to start sinking as well. So it's not like she can just stay there either. Yeah. She's screwed on every end.
There's also a beautiful irony, though, that when she does, because basically she has to wait until the pod's completely submerged because it'll be easier to get out when it's not rushing in. And she swims out in her spacesuit and she starts trying to swim up, but she can't because the suit's so heavy. And I love the irony here that the movie ends with her trying to get up. Like, the whole movie's about being trying to get down to Earth, and here at the end, she's been pinned down to the water, and she's trying to get up as she can, and she has to like remove weight, because that's how it works now. Because now we're not in space, we're in it, we're on Earth, and we're being pulled down by the water. So she's like getting rid of the suit, and she's able to swim up. And I just love that it's the inverse of what everything was up in because that's the thing, like people always compare like the ocean and space, because there is a lot of parallels. There's a lot of like, you know, sailing in space, sailing in the water. I mean, obviously space is more deadly than water, but water's pretty deadly as well. If you're out in the ocean, like, you know, you're pretty isolated there too. So
I mean, yeah. I mean, I would agree with you, but at the same time, like, the reason that I think water is so much more deadly in terms of like actual stuff is because it's so easy to find yourself in water. Like, all of a sudden you're just like, oops, now all of a sudden I'm drowning. Whereas in space, it's very hard to find yourself in space.
That might be the most stupid thing you've ever said to me, David. Of course, it's harder to get to space. I'm not saying you're more likely to die in space, because most people will never be in space. I'm just saying, if you're already on a spaceship versus already in, like I say, a submarine, there's a lot of comparisons to be made.
Oh, no, absolutely.
That's all I'm saying.
No, you're just saying space is more deadly. I'm like, I don't know. I feel like it's, in terms of like safety and stuff like that, it's easier for you to actually die in water. There's so many extra ways to do it.
Well, it's easier to get to water, but I'm saying that you could at least potentially swim in water. You can survive on the surface of the water for a bit.
I don't know. I think I could hold my breath in space pretty well before my eyes popped out.
You're not supposed to hold your breath in space. It actually makes it worse, I think.
Really? All right. Well,
I think if you try to take a deep breath or to hold your breath in space, you have to kind of slowly exhale, I think, to have like maybe a couple seconds.
That's all I need, just a couple seconds.
Yeah.
I do want to point out with the water sequence, though, is that, yes, there's that thing of going up, and that is definitely there. But from the viewpoint of the rebirth storyline, the being born again, this is like literally the moment of birth. This is literally that moment of she is under the water, and this suit, which has been her safety net, effectively her womb of keeping her safe throughout everything, she has to cast it off in order to get out, in order to take that last step out.
No, that's absolutely part of it. I remember we talking about the temperature much in space, but they actually say that at the start, that it varies from like, you know, 250 degrees positive to like a minus 160 or whatever it is. And you do see that later on in the movie where it's getting really cold, and you're like, oh yeah, we're at a cold part now because we're on the opposite side of the sun, kind of thing. So yeah, I like them kind of like, you know, having that come in a little bit, you know, at our lowest moments when it's at the coldest. Like, it just made sense to do it that way. From like a visual and impact perspective. But yeah, like, you know, those visuals of her rising up through the water do feel so impactful because we have been in space the whole time. So now that we're seeing sky and water and mountains and you know, some foliage in the distance, you know, because I think there's like maybe some seaweed floating in the water, and it's like, oh shit, life. There's life here.
They try to keep their wonder going, and she like gets out, she realizes her suit's dragging her down, she starts to take it off, and then because they don't want to have to do that all in one take because it might actually kill Sandra Bullock, they instead go off to a frog that is swimming its way up to the surface at that point. A little bit of parallels of what she's about to do, but also definitely a cheat to get that wonder.
Yeah, I mean, it's because the final thing it says in the opening text crawl is that life is not possible in space. That is the final thing it says before it goes out at the start of the movie. And I feel like this ending's meant to make you feel just life. Like, and so, and the frog is part of that. You know, there's a frog, there's foliage, there's, you know, and obviously her, you know, breathing and looking up into the sun and whatever else. Like, you know, she's came back to Earth, both literally and figuratively, and that's kind of the big point of the movie. So no, I mean, honestly, I mean, as far as endings go, I think like Gravity's a really solid, thrilling movie, but I think it is in a lot of ways made by how solid the last like 10-15 minutes are, where it really nails literally even the landing of the whole thing.
No, I'd agree. I do think that if we're talking about it from a plot perspective, we're talking about it from like how much of a movie experience it is. Yeah, absolutely. I think that the ending is what really ties it all together, makes it really work. But if we're talking about it from the other half of it, the technical expertise and all that sort of stuff, that is selling it throughout the movie. Throughout every set piece, it's doing a fantastic job of it.
It's so funny though, comparing it to other like space movies, and not your big space operas or anything that's super sci-fi, but like something that's a bit more grounded and based on like, you know, relatively unreal space stuff, or even something like Apollo 13, to go back to that, right? Obviously that's not sci-fi technically because it's, you know, based on a true story. It literally just happened.
Right.
but that like, obviously it's a solid movie. It's, you know, it's a good historical film, and you know, but when I think about like all the techno babble and like the problem solving in that versus the thrilling excitement of just seeing her like figure things out and like do the thing and like getting to see the big like theatrical set piece of it, I'm not saying one's better than the other per se, because I don't think they're going for very different things, but I do think that this is kind of like something that we hadn't had yet, which is the pure one person survival in space kind of thing. I mean, if anything, the most comparable thing to an extent is The Martian, which came a couple of years later. But even that's different because it's about surviving on a planet as opposed to space itself. But, you know.
No, I think Martian, this is... If you're putting Apollo 13 and Gravity on like a spectrum where they're the two ends, I think Martian is the midpoint. I think that's kind of the doing both things simultaneously of single person survival, but it is very much technobabble and just... like, how do we work through this over and over again?
Having said that, though, I think that spectrum's quite narrow, because I feel like on the spectrum of stuff that's set in space, Apollo 13 being a historical film isn't even really science fiction, but let's just say for the sake of this spectrum it is. Yeah. Right? Because it's set in space. You have that, obviously, the not documentary, because it's not documentary, but, you know, basically a documentary, right, end of the spectrum. And then you've got, in a little bit, you've got Martian, which is fictional and speculative, but very much based on science as much as it can be. A few dots more. You've got Gravity, which, well, still very fictionalized. It's using the ISS. It's using technology that NASA has. It's doing a few interesting things or different stuff with it, but it's trying to use the grounded stuff to tell its story. And then, you know, other ends, you've got, like, I don't know, Star Wars and shit like that.
right next to Gravity, though, is War of the Worlds 2025. Right up on there.
Wait, you're telling me that's less scientifically accurate than Gravity?
much more scientifically accurate.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, look, if I see a drone deliver me something from Amazon Prime, then that movie's become accurate as far as I'm concerned.
Everything else gets a pass because of Amazon's one-day delivery.
Yep.
Great.
That's the idea. So yeah, movie's great. I mean, I like, honestly, it is such a straightforward, like, focused plot, but I think that's to its benefit. Like, I think it couldn't be any, like, I think if they try to add, like, because I could see so many other filmmakers or writers say, oh, we're going to, like, to break up this, like, monotony of, like, being in space, we're going to do flashbacks to her with her daughter or something. Right. You know, like, sprinkled throughout the movie. Like, we're going to see the moment she found out her daughter died. We're going to see the moment where she found out this. We're going to see the moment where she, like, accepted to go to space and what made her make that choice to leave Earth in the first place. We're going to... And those wouldn't be necessarily bad decisions, and there's absolutely a good version of the story that includes those things. But this movie very clearly wants to just be, no, we're never going to cut away to, like, mission control even, right? We're never going to cut to Ed Harris in, like, NASA, like, talking to them about what was going on. We're not going to do that. This is about just being from her perspective, and that's what makes it feel, even though it's not real time, because it isn't, there's time skips, it feels almost real time at points, because it feels like we're just going through everything from her perspective, and that's what gives it that sense of thrilling kind of, like, survival. She's on her own, she has to figure it out, and I think resisting the urge to do the flashbacks and stuff like that is I think a positive for this movie's overall feeling presentation.
No, yeah, because again, so much of it is the mood, the feeling of isolation, the ability to say she's all alone out here. And the moment you start cutting around to parts where she's not alone, other people currently down on Earth, you lose that feeling. You immediately forfeit that. And so it's for the benefit of the movie that it's just her floating around in space, to the point where I'm glad that we didn't have, like, the barely hanging on survivor in the ISS or the Shenzhou or anything like that. Like, someone just to provide, just like a momentary relapse of saying, like, oh, I'm here to help you and guide you to your next thing, because that would, again, take away from the idea of that complete isolation up here.
It's very pure, and I think that's what this was going for. Because, you know, when I say, like, those flashbacks would be a bad idea here, they're not bad in general. Like, if the point of the movie is, like, a more intricate, like, drama about the characters' decisions or something, then the flashbacks might be the right choice, but that's not what this movie is. Like, you need the flashbacks in I don't know. I mean, Solaris, I'm not even thinking about the remake. I'm thinking about the original. Like, yeah, you need like the cuts to things and memories and dream sequences in that, because that fills out a lot of what the movie's trying to actually say. Here, though, it's not doing that. It's a bit more simple. It has some depth, but it's relatively simple because it wants to keep it focused on the thrill ride of it. It's arguably one of the better roller coaster rides of a movie that exists in the last 20 years.
Yeah, I'd say so. And it is just, you said the word pure. I think that's the best way to describe it, where this doesn't have anything else dragging it down. Like, even the character stuff is so just absolutely, I don't want to say one note because that comes with negative connotations, but it is to an extent. Like, it's not bogged down with like, oh, she had monetary issues or whatever, and that's why she's going up in an asset. Like, none of that matters. It is the pure emotional core of, she has divorced herself from Earth itself because of her past, and now she's finding her way back.
Yeah, absolutely the right choice. It's just, I think what sticks out about it is because it is so focused, and it does feel like, no, there was a clear intention with this movie. It wasn't trying to be this, or this. It wasn't trying to appeal to multiple types of audiences, because sometimes there's like a by committee thing to movies that get like a decent budget from a studio, where it's like, hey, we want this to have a little bit of humor in it so that it appeals to the more casual crowd. We want it to have a bit of this in it to appeal to the nerds. And like, I'm not going to try to say the MCU, but there's a little bit of that kind of vibe to a lot of things. This doesn't have that. This feels like, no, there was a very particular goal in mind, a creative vision in mind, and everything was to serve that creative vision, and it was not like compromised on. And I think because of that, for any faults that you might see or have, or if there's a couple of lines here or there that don't quite work, or that one moment where it feels like the science is kind of, brushed to the side because we want to just have this moment, it feels authentic in the sense that it's authentically someone's vision to tell this story, as opposed to, we had to hit a deadline for marketing reasons, or because we're, this was something that, Cuarón was given by the studio. Hey, we want you to make a space movie to make money. Go do it. Obviously, yes, the studio wants to make money, but it feels very much like, no. He clearly cared about this. He was clearly trying to make an experience out of this that was going to be memorable and be thrilling and all the rest of it. So, yeah, Gravity's very good. I recommend it. To sum it up,
I'm looking up here how many Oscars it won. It looks like 7, maybe 6. So it nailed it. It was a great movie when it came out.
A lot of technical Oscars, I assume.
Oh yeah, especially sound mixing, sound editing. Those ones got some big stuff. And then best director, best editing, and best music written. So the original score. Oh, and visual effects.
Those all sound fair to me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite cool. It got best director, actually. That's actually neat. I don't know if I would have expected to get one of the big 5, but that's cool.
Yeah. I mean, obviously George Clooney and Sandra Bullock got nominated for their own stuff. They just got the nominees, though. Didn't end up winning.
That's probably fair. I mean, I'd have to go back and check what else was out that year, but I don't think I would have necessarily... I think they both do a solid job, but I don't think it's their movie. I think it's the director's movie, honestly, with this one. Let's
see here. Best picture that year was 12 Years a Slave.
That's fair. And that's really good.
Best actor was Matthew McConaughey for Dallas Buyers Club.
Okay, yeah.
Best actress was Cate Blanchett in Blue Jasmine.
Haven't seen it. I can't comment on that one.
Fair enough.
But fair enough. Anyway, David, what are you rating Gravity out of 10?
I mean, it's a solid movie. It really is. I think that this is one of those ones that is not going to be one that is gonna top lists. I don't think this is one that's gonna stick around in people's memories long term. It's not gonna be one that's like, oh yeah, everybody remembers Gravity. That's like that fantastic movie where that happens. But it's still really solid. It almost feels like it's gonna end up being some level of like a cult movie, but not in the way where like it's so bad it's good or anything. It just is a good movie that just snuck under the radar. So yeah, I think this one is gonna probably get I'm gonna say an 8.5. I think it's at that level for me. It's close to the 9, but it's something where, as much as I enjoy watching it, it isn't something that I feel this urge to return to very often. I've only seen it twice before, and those were at least a decade ago. So it's solid. It's very well done, and I do appreciate it. But it is still just under that 9 for me.
Yeah. For the record, when someone says something's a cult hit, I assume it's still a good movie first before I think so bad it's good. I mean, I know some fall into that category, but I guess
the thing is, in my mind, the default cult hit is The Room, and that's where I'm like, I have to clarify it's not that.
No, I mean, Evil Dead was a cult hit.
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in the same ballpark, obviously. Like, technical qualities are through the charts, music, direction. It's just a question of, does it cross over into being one of those sci-fi greats that are uttered in the same breath as a Jurassic Park, a Terminator, a 2001, and all that. And I don't think it quite hits that. So I actually think the 8.5 sounds about right. I think it's a great, even very great, since an 8.5 is basically an 8+, if you will. But maybe 9 is it's like touching on it. It's touching on it, and I might have even given it the 9 when I first saw it. It may have been like my gut instinct, but I think time moves on, and you can look at it with a bit more hindsight in the time of like actually reflecting on it. How's it held up and all that? It holds up very, very well, for the record. Like, this is not something that's went down particularly much in my estimates, but I've seen a lot more movies since then, and there's a steeper curve to get into that upper echelon. So I'm going to say 8.5 as well. But yeah, it's a great movie. Recommend it, obviously. So cool. Well, David's got his homework movie in just a minute, but I'll tell you what's coming next week. We're looking at another film from the 2010s. This one's called Europa Report, which I have never seen. This is a first-time watch for me.
All right. I've never heard of it, so fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I'd heard of it, but I bought it on sale a couple of months ago, and that's why it appeared on the schedule. Just kind of...
As most of this entire show is.
Look, I mean, yes. I mean, I'm looking down the schedule and I'm seeing, like, yep, it's because I bought that. Yep, it's because I bought that one. Yep, it's because I bought that one. Like, it's something I do, okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Like discovering new movies that I've not seen and seeing how they go. But, yeah, so that's next week on the show. Of course, check out Christmas Season over on Collector's Cut, and if those are too silly for you, then go back and check out Cinema May Season or 70s Thriller Season. Lots of good stuff to check out over in Collector's Cut. Go and have a look-see. But yeah, so David's got his homework movie in a second. I'll just say before we get to that, if you want to support the show and help keep the Atomic Cinema Experiment coming, as well as Collector's Cut and all the other movie stuff that we do at Mail Fuzz Movies, you can support us at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV or via YouTube membership. Get access to the Ratings Rundown segment we do for every episode now. Get access to Extra Reels, which is a monthly show we do covering the worst movies of all time. We recently did the 2025 War of the Worlds, starring Ice Cube. We have done, lots of the big, like, bad movie classics, but we've also done some just absolute trash that you might never have heard of. And if you want to see us get angry, upset, maniacal with laughter, then that's maybe the show to check out. But that's a once-a-month thing for patrons and YouTube members. Go check it out. But otherwise, that'll do it for me plugging. I'll just say like, subscribe, all that usual stuff. Helps out a bunch. But David, you did a homework movie, which is where you go back and watch a movie we did on the show before you joined the show. What was this week's homework movie?
Well, I just narrowed it down to space movies, and I picked one of the first ones on the list. I picked Ad Astra.
Okay. Interesting.
Yep. So, Brad Pitt movie, 2019. Basic plot, without spoiling anything, is that there is a signal, a surge that's disrupting a bunch of life on Earth, and it's coming from, theoretically, this old space mission way out at the edge of the solar system that happens to have Brad Pitt's dad involved with it somehow. And so he's trying to figure out how to stop that, and it's all very introspective. I think that's the big thing of the movie, is that it is very much not so much about the in the way Gravity was about, like, oh, we're doing these set pieces and we're doing these, like, big things like that. This is very much still a few action sequences, but a lot of inside of Brad Pitt's head, of sorting through his father issues and the way that he views the world, of how he felt like he had to give up a bunch of stuff to become an astronaut, and in a lot of the same ways as Sandra Bullock's character in this, divorces himself from most of humanity in order to live that life. So Overall, I liked it. I think it was a very well-made film. I think it went in with this solid intention to it. I do think that the third act doesn't quite land for me. It feels a bit Hollywoodized in a lot of ways, and it's weird because there are a bunch of carryover moments between that film and Gravity, and it was weird because I felt like Gravity did all of them better, despite this one coming out later. So I mean, it's visually, it looks great. I think it does a great job with the style. It does feel like the director came in with a vision to it, but yeah, the ending to it just didn't quite land as well, especially compared to Gravity. And it is also 2 hours long, and I think that is one of the times where there's a couple things that feel like they could have been tightened up on. There's a few things that feel like they were maybe studio notes coming down saying, hey, can we inject a little bit of action at this part in the movie? Because there's a point where they like have to answer a distress beacon, and that just feels like it comes out of nowhere and accomplishes nothing, but we get a bit of action there for whatever reason. So overall, it's probably going to be like a 7.5 for me. I don't think it's quite up to the same level, but it's still a decent watch. I'm not saying to skip it by any means. It's just not quite up to that same wow factor that we got just out of Gravity here.
Yeah, I mean, it's got nice visuals. There's some decent world building in the background, like the moon having like an airport effectively for space travel. It's got like a subway and Starbucks in it. It's like, yeah, this feels kind of cool and realistic. It has Max Richter doing some music for it, and he's very good. So I like that. But the script is definitely kind of falls apart in the back half, I would say. There's I don't want to get any spoilers, but there's something in that movie where basically it wants to make sure he's on his own for the last chunk of the film. So something really absurd happens to make sure that that is the case, and it feels like such a forced thing in the script. But yeah, no, I agree.
No. I the moment that happened, I was like, did I accidentally fast forward? Like, what just happened? Why is he alone now? Like, it just boom. Oh, okay, I guess he's done now.
It just feels so clunky from a script perspective, and shoehorned in. But
yeah.
Anyway, that's Ad Astra, a movie which I probably overrated when it came out. I think I'd probably be giving it at least a point lower than I did at the time.
All right. You gave it an 8. So
yeah, that's too high.
I matched with Tara.
I think that's too high. I think I like the visual and audio experience of it, but definitely compared to Gravity, the script is weaker. The script absolutely falls apart compared to Gravity. So
I mean, that was probably a new release as well. You did that in 2019.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'd seen that in the theaters when it came out and talked about it. So yeah, I definitely could put that down to a 7.
Okay.
I think now, but yeah. So sometimes time just lets you re-examine things a little bit. But that's okay. Anyway, that's the show, everyone. That is the Atomic Cinema Experiment. So we'll see you next week for Europa Report. Thank you very much for joining us. We do appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction and computer ad salsa.